Yeah, I'm sure nobody's sitting on the edge of their seat right now because they started Keenan Allen and Aaron Rodgers in their fantasy football leagues. Let's get you ready for your semifinals. All right, welcome into a new episode of BSP Sunday Morning Fantasy. I'm your co-host, Ryan Stern. Joined with me, as always, Derek Mountain, Tom Bennett. Good morning, guys.
What's up?
Morning, man. How we doing?
Well, so in the league that I'm the commissioner of, the one that I care about the most, I have Josh Allen in a super flex league. Josh Allen goes absolutely berserk last night. I'm going against Stephon Diggs, Aaron Jones, Darren Waller.
Oh, man.
It doesn't matter.
I'm still I was before, and this is why projections on Yahoo mean absolutely nothing, because going into Thursday night's game, I was projected to win by 30 points. Now I'm projected to lose by 10. I had a roller coaster of emotions because, like I said, it's a super flex league. I had Taysom Hill in there, and now Drew Brees is starting. And then now we hear Matthew Stafford, who was on my bench. So I'm now reliant on Matthew Stafford as my super flex QB. It's a great matchup, but boy.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat as you, Ryan. I had Josh Allen. Then I was playing Aaron Rodgers. I'm like, oh, this is great. But I'm playing Noah Fant and the Bills defense, like mine for 35. That negated my Josh Allen. And Robbie Anderson with 2 points didn't really help.
Yeah.
So on Thursday, my mom's in the semifinals in the family league, and she's like asking me for advice about Keenan Allen. And I'm like, we'll see. But I think you got to play him. Like, he's the wide receiver 3 in PPR, like whatever. Like, you got to just – it's a great matchup. Like, you're going to hate yourself if he goes for 25 against the Raiders. I'm like, put Tyrone Johnson on your bench, drop someone. If he's not playing, you put in Tyrone Johnson. He had 55 yards against the Falcons, 55 and a touchdown, whatever. It's great. Of course, he gets the one catch. He's on the sideline. Like, you better not sit me. I'm like, oh, that's great. He's going to he's fine. He's going to ball out. It's going to be great. My mom's not going to give me any crap for it. And he goes out, he has the one catch. And she's like, I knew I should have played Keenan. She had Josh Allen as well, so she's fine. It canceled each other out. But I was like, oh, you have to play him. Like, it's such a tough spot there. But, I don't know.
So I had heard someone say that, yes, he was saying don't sit me, but what people didn't know was that Anthony Lynn was on the other side of the camera, and he was saying, don't sit me.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah, I mean, that luckily, not luckily, but the only league that I actually had a Keenan Allen share, I didn't even make the playoffs because of injuries everywhere else. I literally lost my top 2 running backs and my and one of my 2 of my 3 quarterbacks in a super flex league, dynasty league. Yeah, it was really bad. But again, if you have any questions for your fantasy lineup, it's semifinals week for most leagues. Unfortunately, for one of my leagues, which is a week 17 championship, this is quarterfinals week. And I actually had Justin Herbert. So I'm like, all right, that was a good start going against Josh Allen. But if you have any lineup questions, leave them in the comments below. We will answer them live on air. We've got buy or sell. We've got this or that. And as always, our studs, and sleepers for the week. So we are going to do a little bit wide receiver heavy with this or that. And so I've got 3 matchups that I want you to discuss. And so the first one is going to be, I had to get a Matthew Stafford question in. So we've got Marvin Jones versus Tyler Lockett.
Look, I know that everyone's saying, bench Tyler Lockett, bench Tyler Lockett. It's going to be a bad game. I don't think Russell Wilson's going to take the pressure from the Washington defense as poorly as other quarterbacks have. I think with his mobility to move out of the pocket, he's going to extend the plays. And whenever he extends the plays, the ball seems to go to Tyler Lockett, who's running the shorter mid route while DK is going for the Hail Mary. I still like Tyler Lockett in PPR. If it were just a standard league, I'd probably lean towards Marvin Jones.
So just to clarify with Stafford, it's punctured rib cartilage, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So like, all right.
So I don't know if either of you follow Dr. David Chow. He is a clinically certified doctor who now focuses on fantasy football and football injuries. And he is one of the greatest Twitter follows and one of the most informative Twitter follows. So go follow Dr. David Chow. If he's going to really give you a lot of information as to what a player is actually dealing with in terms of his health. He was saying that that Matthew Stafford's going to get an injection, but it's still going to hurt where he's going to need the flap jacket and all. But if there's one thing we've learned about Matthew Stafford is that
he's a warrior.
He is an absolute warrior.
Yeah. So I still think you err on the side of caution. Maybe you get 75% of Stafford for production wise,
which is still much better than 100% of Chase Daniel.
Yes. Yeah.
Very
exactly.
True.
Exactly. They have Swift, so I feel like it's not a good Tennessee run defense. They maybe try to slow the game down and lean a little bit on the run game a little more than they want to. I can't do that. I have to stick with Tyler Lockett. I'm with Tom here. I know he has cooled down dramatically the past month, but he's another guy I would just never feel comfortable benching because, like the Arizona game, like there are just these games where he single-handedly wins you fantasy matchups.
Well, and the other thing, like his time has to be coming. Like DK's having all of these games. There's going to be a time where it's just like, all right, it's Tyler Lockett's day. We've seen him go and get, 20 catches, I think?
Arizona was 15 and
for
203. Yeah.
Something like his time has to be coming. Is
it going to come against Washington?
Not that game, but could you see 120 and 2? I could.
Yeah, I mean, I could see him getting, 7-8 catches and going for, 120 yards and a touchdown, and that gets you the production that exceeds his projection right now. So I still like Lockett.
Ceiling. How about that? That's Marvin Jones' ceiling.
Yeah.
I hate you both because I think I actually prefer Marvin Jones in over Tyler Lockett this week. Where he's just guaranteed the volume, where we saw earlier in the season, Tyler Lockett was guaranteed volume. We haven't seen that guaranteed volume in 4 weeks. And we've got a tough matchup to boot. Tyler Lockett scares me a lot this week. All right, next matchup is Deontay Johnson versus Deebo Samuel. We've got Deontay going up against Cincy tomorrow night, and Deebo going up. I'm sorry, not Deebo. Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk versus Deontay Johnson. Ayuk going up against the Dallas Cowboys today.
That's what I was just looking at. I didn't think Deebo was in. I was late. Derek, you go first. I need a minute.
I mean, Ayuk was my guy last week on the sleeper section. I don't really think he was a sleeper. I just think he wasn't talked about enough. And now he's finally getting that press, that notoriety that he's deserved. There's no Deebo Samuel. He had 10 catches last week. I mean, he is a superstar in the making. If it wasn't for the other rookie receivers, any other given year, he'd probably be the wide receiver one among rookies. I mean, he's insane. I don't know if there are 7 or 8 receivers I'd take over Ayuk against Dallas this week, honestly, because we know we're getting volume at this point. That was the only question mark because we had seen the big flash plays, like the Eagles screen pass where he hurdled a guy at the goal line. the big time athleticism. He's a monster. It's a great fit in that offense. Mullins loves him. I'm going with Ayuk here.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, he hit all the points, man. It's just God, I hadn't even heard of Brandon Ayuk until the beginning of the season. I'm like, wait, this kid's got some skill, and like you say, he hasn't been getting any press because of guys like Justin Jefferson, T. Higgins, and the like. I think I gotta agree with Derek on this one. I really like Ayuk and the matchup. Like Dallas can't stop anyone. Even Cincinnati last week looked semi-decent versus them. So I'm going to agree and go with Ayuk here.
Mullins is a painful watch, but he does pad the stats. He does end up getting 250 plus every single week, and there's no one else to prove to.
He's amongst the leaders, I think, of passing for 250 yards over the first certain amount of starts of his career.
Yeah, he had the third most passing yards in NFL history through 14 starts. And like the other names are all first ballot Hall of Famers. Like, what is this? Like,
I know. I think one was Mahomes.
Mm-hmm. I forget the list. It was like midseason when Mullins beat that record, where he was like in the top 3. It was like, what am I looking at right now? Like, this is so gross.
Well, look, I've said before, I have very strong feelings about Nick Mullins. I think that he's a really good quarterback. I actually think he's better than Jimmy Garoppolo because Jimmy Garoppolo has just been terrible. And I've said that from day one since they signed him to that mega deal. And I think that if Nick Mullins got an opportunity to start somewhere else, like potentially even Chicago, I think he would thrive in Chicago working with Allen Robinson and that other, like, arsenal of receivers. I just think that he needs to change the scenery and an opportunity.
All right. The last one that I have is Robert Woods versus Terry McLaurin. We've seen Terry McLaurin really struggle the past couple of weeks, and now he's got Dwayne Haskins to deal with. And usually when you talk about a wide receiver having to deal with somebody, it's the cornerback on the other side of the field. But with Terry McLaurin, you have to deal with the quarterback that's throwing him the ball. So you've got McLaurin, who is the number 1 wide receiver on the team. And then you have Robert Woods, who, yes, he's going up against the Jets, but how much are they going to need to throw the ball in order to beat the Jets?
Tom, you want me to go first again?
I mean, I can give my little answer, but I'm sure I could re-solidify it based on what you say. So I take that as you will.
I'm going with Robert Woods. I've always been a huge Terry praiser. I love McLaurin. Yep. I think he should be talked among A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf in that 2018 or 2019 draft class. And he's kind of an afterthought. He's on Washington. Hasn't had the strong QB play. And Ryan alluded to it. He has Haskins back there. As much as we don't want to admit it, the Seattle defense has played a lot better. I know it's against weaker opponents, but that's what Washington is, and they still are without Antonio Gibson. I think all the attention has to go to McLaurin today, going against Seattle.
Last season, when McLaurin was really having his like little string of breakout games, Haskins was the quarterback. So he and him have better chemistry, I think, than him and Alex Smith did, and that's kind of why we saw this dip in production for Terry McLaurin. But I agree. I think that the Jets just can't really stop anyone. And even if they're going to be running Cam Akers, shout out to my stud of the week coming up here in a minute. Even if they're going to have to go through Cam Akers starting in the second quarter or beginning of the second half, I think Woods is going to be a vital part of that offense that gets them up early, whether it be just yardage wise or if he catches a couple of touchdowns. So I agree. I'm going to have to go with Robert Woods here.
Yeah, I think Robert Woods right now is probably the safer play. McLaurin is the upside play because there is every chance that they rekindle what they had at Ohio State. We just haven't seen it with Dwayne Haskins on the field yet. But if there is a defense that it can be done against,
it's Seattle.
The Seattle defense is still capable of giving up a ton of yards, a ton of points. So the upside play to me would be Terry McLaurin, but the safer play would be Robert Woods.
Oh, man.
All right.
So how about Devontae Adams for fantasy owners last night. He was just a guaranteed 30, and then last night he gets 40 yards against Carolina.
Out of all, it was only 4. I didn't even see
40.
that.
It was like 7 catches for 41 or 42 yards, and it was like,
oh my God.
He still ends up with 11 PPR points, but Devontae Adams is single-handedly winning you games every week, and he's going against Carolina.
I would have liked that last week to save myself the heart attacks because I was playing him twice in both of my first round. I was the 7 seed in one and the 8 seed in another, and I was playing against him. I would have loved to save the heart attacks.
All right, so now we're going to get into buy or sell, and so with buy or sell, we look at some of the props at at how many yards a player will get. So the first one that I wanted to get into, and this one really intrigued me, especially because of how hot he's been and the team he's going against, which we all know he has torched over the years. The line for T.Y. Hilton against the Houston Texans is set at 63.5.
I'm going to buy it.
Last
2 weeks, he's been money. I mean, the only question I had with T.Y. this whole year was his chemistry with Phillip Rivers, because he is getting separation. There was just a disconnect, especially on the long ball. That's obviously not Rivers' game, but they have been connecting on those the past few weeks. And we've talked about it. Ryan talked about it a couple weeks ago when they played. He kills Houston. He always kills Houston. It's a weak defense. They have nothing in that secondary. And Rivers, I mean, I think I saw Rivers' line to throw today was at like 280 on DraftKings. I mean, he's a guarantee to throw for over 250. It's him. It's Michael Pittman. It's those tight ends. But I'm buying the 63.5. I love that number.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really want to go first because I'm not sure if you can tell. I might be a little bit biased today, but I'm also going to buy that. I think that he'll be able to. I think he'll be a. I don't want to say vital part of their offense, but definitely a very prominent part of their offense today for in this game today.
All right, the next one that I have is AJ Brown, and his line is set at 66.5. We've seen AJ Brown have these huge games, and we've seen him have weeks where he disappears. It's a great matchup against Detroit, but it's also a great matchup for Derrick Henry. And it's also a great matchup for Corey Davis. But the 66.5 for AJ Brown really seemed like an intriguing number to me.
I think that these people in Vegas are getting too good with their numbers.
They always are.
Yeah, I mean, even on point spreads last week, there were just a ton that were that half point. I'm going to buy this one solely because of points I talk about later when I'm talking about my studs and my favorite stack of the week, because I really like Tannehill and AJ Brown this week. I think that they're going to have really good chemistry, and they're going to be able to move the ball through the air, even though Derrick Henry is going to rush for that insane number that he's going to rush for that I can't really point out in my head because it just seems to keep getting bigger and bigger every week. But I think that Tannehill's going to find that one or two plays where he gets AJ Brown deep for a score or two.
Yeah, Tom, I mean, you're right. It takes one or two plays with AJ Brown. So that's why I think I lean towards the buy. And the only answer the Lions are going to have to stop Derrick Henry is putting 8 in the box. They have to. It's such a bad front. And that's only going to help AJ Brown down the field. That's only going to help their play action. So I would bet on him having the 40, 50-yard catch that he seems to have each week, because it's not like the Lions are going to scheme him up to take him out of the game. So I would lean towards a buy, but I could easily see him getting 30 yards too.
Yeah, the amount of options that Tennessee will have today scares me. That line scares me a little bit. Again, both of you said it may take only one, maybe two plays for AJ Brown to reach that number. He's that explosive. But if I had to put something down on this, I'd probably lean the under, just because I'm not sure with it being such a great matchup for everybody on this team. for for whether or not we're going to see AJ Brown be able to get that.
The Lions are the name brand Jets.
I would take the over for Corey Davis, easily, because he's a shoo-in for 7-8 catches.
That's why I gave you AJ Brown and not Corey.
Yeah.
Oh man!
All right, and the final buy or sell is going to be DJ Chark, and this year has been a struggle to say the least for DJ Chark, especially after coming off the year that he had last year. He's dealt with injuries. He's dealt with Gardner Minshew's injury and benching, and now both of them are healthy. Both of them are starting, but they get the Baltimore Ravens. DJ Chark's line is set at 45.5 today. How enticing is that? Or is that a trap? Because when a line is that low for somebody who's so good and who has a track record with a particular quarterback, that feels like a trap to me.
Yeah, it does. I would actually go towards the under. It's all James Robinson, this offense. Hopefully Minshew gives them that little jolt. They keep it close and competitive. It's a big line. I think it moved down to 12. Now it's back up to 13. I think Jacksonville can keep it close just because I think Baltimore's going to run the ball a lot. They played on Tuesday and then they played on Monday night Baltimore, so it's kind of a tough spot. I still think they're going to score a lot of points, but I think it's going to be fewer possessions. I don't think they're necessarily going to be playing as much catch-up as a lot of people think. And they have a lot of other options. I mean, Robinson gets involved in the pass game. Chenal, I think he really Cole's the guy who eats up most of the targets and receptions. I know Minshew likes him, but he's going to get the most attention from a good secondary. So I'd go under, actually.
Yeah, I have to agree. It's really hard to say that this is going to be Chark's week because we haven't seen Chark week since last year.
Yeah, like I said, as much as this may feel like a trap, DJ Chark is one of those guys that it may only take a catch or two and it's a much lower number to obtain than someone like an AJ Brown to get to that number. The one thing that would scare me is that we've seen the Ravens be susceptible to the run over the past couple weeks, and James Robinson, I actually think James Robinson is a much better play this week than a lot of people. I think a lot of people are scared off because of the Ravens defense. They've been susceptible to the run, so I actually am comfortable playing James Robinson this week.
He's a monster.
Yeah, I mean,
that dude's a fantasy MVP easily for me. He's unbelievable.
Based on cost.
Yes, value. Yep.
Yeah, it's hard to. I mean, he's I think he's the RB4 on the year.
Yeah,
something like that.
It's insane. It's insane. I think people are already starting it. It's like, is Jacksonville going to draft a running back? He's just really good. He can do everything. I still think he has a couple years before we start worrying about injuries and him kind of declining, the natural decline of a running back. But he's the only bright spot on this team this year.
Jacksonville has too many holes on their team to worry about drafting James Robinson's replacement.
He's basically playing for free as an undrafted free agent. It's one of the only things they really shouldn't worry about. You're right, Ryan.
Yeah. All right. We will get into our studs, and sleepers. As always, if you have lineup questions, leave them in the comments below. We will answer them live on air. So we will start off with our studs of the week. And as always, we start off with quarterbacks. Tom, why don't you lead us off?
Sure. We've kind of already been talking about this a little bit. I got Ryan Tannehill today for all the reasons that we were kind of just talking about, that Detroit defense is so susceptible seemingly on every level of the field. We already talked about it. It's going to be a big Derrick Henry day, but I can see Tannehill going through the air when they're stacking it in the box to either AJ Brown or Corey Davis, like we've talked about.
Derek, how about you?
I'm going with Goff against Tom's Jets. Easy pick, but the Jets have been better against the run. They're still a top half team against the run. We've seen them just go all Cam Akers, all run game at certain points, and them go Jared Goff, drop it back 50 times a game. I think it depends on the week for McVay. I think you're going to see more balance against the Jets. I think they're going to get their guys out by the third and fourth quarter, but that doesn't mean he still can't get 300 yards, 2 or 3 touchdowns to Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. I love Jared Goff today.
I'm going with Tom Brady against the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta still continues to hemorrhage points to the quarterbacks, and this is the healthiest that the receiving core has been for the Buccaneers all year long. With no Ronald Jones in this week, it's going to be Leonard Fournette and maybe a little bit of Keyshawn Vaughn, but I think it's going to be Tom Brady chucking the ball for at least 40 times today. I really, really like the connection that I think he will have with Chris Godwin today. So Tom Brady is my quarterback stud of the week. All right, we have our first question. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson Jr. I'm assuming that's Chris Carson, and so don't even bring up Sony Michel.
Yeah, don't bring up Sony Michel.
We don't talk about Sony Michel here. So you got Chris Carson with a really tough matchup against Washington, and then you have the two-headed monster in San Francisco, Mostert or Jeff Wilson, and it is a PPR.
So I think this goes back to I almost want to call it the theme of this show. It's what do you need? Do you need the ceiling or do you need the floor? Because between the two of them, I think Wilson has a higher ceiling because even though he's the RB2, he's seeing the same amount of touches as Mostert. He just seems to be getting the more explosive plays. But Mostert seems to also get a lot of PPR points. So I'm really looking at both the San Francisco guys solely because of the matchup for Carson. I would probably lean Mostert because it's the semifinals and I like to play by my studs. But going Wilson here also would not be a bad choice.
Carson's in my duds, but I actually think I would pick Carson just because I don't really like the other options that much. I know it's against Dallas, but Wilson, to me, you're depending on a touchdown because he's probably not seeing over 10 or 12 touches. Same with Mostert. I mean, he's clearly nursing an injury. It's not the same guy that we were used to seeing the first month of the year where he could just pop a big run at any time. He doesn't look like that guy. I would go towards Carson. You know you're going to get 15 touches. It's a much more potent offense, and he can get his points through the air as well.
Yeah, Chris Carson's going to be my answer also. I'm just not confident that I will pick if I had to choose between either of the 49ers guys, that I would pick the right one. Now,
that's good.
A little bit of spoiler alert. We may talk a little about Jeff Wilson Jr. later on in the show. But it's hard to bench Chris Carson.
Yes.
We've seen over the past couple weeks that Seattle is trying to get back into the establish the run mindset. Mm-hmm. And yes, it is a tough matchup, but it's I actually think that Chris Carson has a higher probability of a catch total of the three of them. So making with it being a PPR, I'm going to lean towards Carson as well.
I might be a little biased because I despise Carson, but that's just me.
Well, I actually traded away Chris Carson in preseason in my dynasty league. Traded away Chris Carson and second rounder for DeAndre Hopkins. So
you absolutely destroyed that trade. I love that for you.
That's a win.
My goodness.
This one team had like their running back core was so depleted that Chris Carson became their number 1 RB. So
I feel bad for them.
That's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah.
It do be like that.
All right. Thank you so much for your question. And again, Merry Christmas. If you have lineup questions, leave them in the comments below. We will answer them just like we did. All right, let's move on to our running back studs of the week. And Tom, who you got?
It wouldn't be a Back Sports Page fantasy podcast if I didn't bash on the Jets. I'm going Cam Akers here, going off of Ryan's Derek's Jared Goff. Akers has been kind of popping off. I don't know if you guys have been seeing this, but he's had 3 straight weeks with 15 or more. And last week he had his season high 171 yards on 29 attempts versus a New England defense that, while they're still depleted and missing a bunch of players due to COVID, is still a relatively good defense. And while the Jets may also be in that top half, they're not stopping anyone. They're going to let people walk into the end zone just so that we can secure that Trevor Lawrence pick, who, by the way, sorry, Rye, that was a tough game. That was a tough one.
Trevor Lawrence is insane.
He's absolutely insane.
He's insane.
It's crazy. And they're watching that game last night and they're like, okay, now we know why we're tanking. We're going for 0-16. This guy is the future. So they're going to let anyone walk into the end zone. And once the Jared Goff and Robert Woods, like we were talking about, once they start getting it going through the air, get up early, it's going to be all Cam Akers.
We're going to find out in 20 minutes who the matchups are?
Yeah.
12 o'clock?
Yeah. In a little more than 20 minutes. Yeah.
We're gonna get number 1 versus number 2 pick again in the first round. I mean, I think Ohio State's gonna get killed, but that's gonna be fun to watch.
Yeah. So
I've been hearing a lot of people that are big into the draft Twitter thing that are saying Justin Fields may fall.
Stop.
They were talking about that in our group chat.
I think he has his flaws, but like he was also without his top 2 receivers against the best total defense in the Power 5. I know Northwestern isn't the best defense, but it's a really well coached team. Like
I know that the report came out this morning that that NFL teams are going to start talking to him after their bowl game. But how has it just been that Pat Fitzgerald has been so loyal to Northwestern? How has he not gotten a shot in the NFL?
How is he not? Notre Dame is one, but like Brian Kelly's done great. How has he not gotten higher? I mean, I know he has a lifetime deal with Northwestern, but like I don't even know how he manages to get to the championship at Northwestern, like against these other schools. It's ridiculous. I don't know how he hasn't even got a higher coaching job in college even.
That game was so much closer than it should have been for 52 minutes, 54 minutes of that game. The way that they came out and just it was just too much Ohio State running for that defense.
That one run by Sermon where he like spun off, shook off 2 guys, farmed.
He's gonna be a nice day 3 pick, like 4th round. He could be a nice back somewhere.
Yeah,
you got 2 backs from Ohio State that are going to get drafted probably in the top 4 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't even see Master Teague yesterday.
No.
Yeah. Well, and it's just crazy because like I watched that last night. I was watching this guy and I was like, this Sermon guy's insane. He must be like a really high pick. And I'm like, I don't see him on any of on the mock drafts. He's the backup.
Yeah.
And he just broke Sean Alexander, Zeke, and Eddie George. He passed all 3 of those guys for the most rushing yards in a single game. That's
do we want to talk about
championship, yeah.
Do we want to talk about Najee?
Oh, oh my, yeah, but there's a difference about running on the Northwestern defense than there is running on the.
No, you're right, but like, I mean. He's hurdling guys.
Could rush for 100 against Florida.
He's hurdling guys. He's catching the ball out of the backfield. He's breaking a tackle every single time.
He's my RB.
Look,
I have him ahead of ATN.
He's a light version of Derrick Henry that can catch the ball and is much more elusive at the first level for like around the line of scrimmage. Like you can stop Derrick Henry because he hasn't really gotten going yet. He needs his momentum, and then he's obviously unbelievable. Najee Harris, he can stop on a dime, and he can run you over, and he can catch. Like, oh my God, he's so good.
I've been trying to fight this fight for a really long time because I'm like low-key a Clemson fan because there's no way I'm rooting for Rutgers, and I hate rooting for schools like Alabama. That's why I don't root for the Yankees.
Chop wood, baby, chop wood.
Chop wood. I'm like a low-key Clemson fan, and I've been fighting for a really long time now for keeping ETN as the number one running back, but I don't know if I can anymore. I mean, Najee Harris is just a different.
It depends on what teams you go to. Like ETN fits the modern running back role. Like probably better.
He's like a Kamara type build, whereas Najee Harris is Derrick Henry that can catch.
Yeah.
Like you said.
Depends on the teams that they go to. Like
I think those
like what if the Bills took Najee at the end of the first round, like a really good team like that kind of needs a running back.
They really don't need running backs though, because they have their passing game is insane. And Zach Moss
is fine.
Zach Moss is going to develop into a really good back. If he gets into the true number one role and can play like all three downs instead of splitting with Singletary. I've been saying this every week. I'm a big fan of Zach Moss. I think that he's in a really good situation, but they got to get Devin Singletary out of there.
All right, so we've got the inactives, the actives and inactives for the 1 o'clock games. Mark Ingram is a healthy scratch.
He got 2 snaps last week.
And one touch, and it didn't even register because it was a flea flicker. Ezekiel Elliott is out. Yeah. Fire up your Tony Pollard. I mean, it is a tough matchup against San Fran, but we've seen for weeks now Tony Pollard has been the most effective running back in Dallas. Matthew Stafford is active and will start. Salvin Ahmed is active for Miami. I think he will get the starting gig back, and we can forget about DeAndre Washington again. Mo Alley Cox is active, surprisingly, and so is Jimmy Graham, but Cole Kmet is the starter there. I part of the reason why I had my tight end sleeper who I picked was because I was assuming Alley Cox and Burton were both going to be out. Burton is out. So, I mean, that obviously gave away who my sleeper tight end is. But also, on the Ravens defense, Marcus Peters and Calais Campbell are out. Ooh. So maybe now we can fire up a little DJ Chark. Maybe we do see Chark week in effect.
Jacksonville's going to cover that spread. 13. Jacksonville's going to cover that spread.
Yeah. 13 in that.
And DeForest Buckner is playing this week, so that's a hit to the David Johnson owners.
Indeed.
All right. Again, if you have lineup question, leave them in the comments below. All right. So we were on our running back studs. And Tom, you gave yours, right? Derek?
Yes, I gave K-Makers going to feast. Yes. Indeed.
And Derek, so we're up to you.
Yes. I will go with another rookie. I mean, we talked about midseason guys who should be looking to acquire. I might have said Cam Akers. I might have said J.K. Dobbins. And now they're both winning playoff matchups. Dobbins last week, 75 yards and a touchdown. But Ryan just said it. Mark Ingram's a scratch. I was going to say he had 2 snaps last week. It's him and it's Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards saw, I think, 27 or 28% of the snaps. It's all Dobbins. I mean, from here on out, they realized they're making this playoff push. I think they groomed Dobbins a little longer than we would have liked to see, but he's the best option in that backfield. He's got a great matchup against Jacksonville, and I don't think they want to lean on Lamar as much down the stretch, at least today, given their last 2 games. I think they lean more towards the ground attack with Dobbins, with Edwards, slow the game down a little bit, wear them out, get in, get out without any injuries. I like Dobbins today.
Let's continue the trend because this is a name that I know I said when we were talking about guys to look to acquire midseason, and that's Jonathan Taylor. we can tell. I mean, I have this this love for T.Y. Hilton, this regained love for T.Y. Hilton, and now Jonathan Taylor could easily see 30 touches today against one of the most porous defenses in the league. The Saints have placed Jameis Winston on the COVID list.
No way.
Poor guy, man.
Can't catch a break.
He's got to be so sad.
Yeah.
He took a pay cut and he doesn't play. Oh, man.
Well, and you already know the Saints are going to draft a quarterback with that.
He's not going back.
I tweeted something out earlier this week when we found out about Drew Brees. Because literally the day before the Saints announced that Drew Brees was going to start, Sean Payton came out and said he still needs a lot more time.
And they knew on Monday.
And they knew on
Monday that he's going to be playing.
He says on Wednesday that he still has a ways to go. I mean, you cannot a damn word this guy says.
It's smart, though. The scouting, the way that you scout Taysom Hill and Drew Brees has got to be like the biggest 180 ever.
Yeah, I mean, oh, my God.
Yeah, so do not listen to anything Sean Payton says for the rest of his life. If he tells you he's dying, do not believe him.
He's actually getting reborn. He's actually getting younger as he's dying.
I cannot stand.
My God.
All right. Jonathan Taylor, I absolutely love him this week. I love all of the Colts this week. I think they are going to smash the Texans defense. We're looking at what's it? Let me pull it up. The over under for this game is set at 51.5. I mean,
Colts have been scoring a lot.
I would go over.
How consistent? I mean, Phillip Rivers has been one of the most consistent quarterbacks over the last 5 weeks, and nobody is talking about him.
He literally just throws bun hooks, crossers, option routes. Like, it's the most boring thing, and then he throws a deep ball to T.Y. Hilton. So you got to respect the deep ball a little bit. But, like, it is the easiest passes. They're always wide open. Like, I don't know how, but he looks great.
I love Phillip Rivers, and my parents make fun of me for loving him, bro. I love Phillip Rivers. He's so good.
I mean, it goes to show you, and that sometimes, I mean, Phillip Rivers played in the same jersey, in the same stadium, well, I guess close to the same stadium, but for what, 16 years of his career. That was a huge adjustment. And without a thorough off-season program, it took him a while. And it took him a while to get on track with T.Y. Hilton. And now that they are there, I mean, hey, you got to ride the lightning. Mm-hmm. All right, on to our wide receiver studs of the week. Tom, who you got?
I got a guy that I've praised all year long, and I absolutely love him this week. It's Calvin Ridley versus Tampa. The one place that Tampa's been susceptible to giving up yardage and fantasy points, and specifically, was through the air. I know that Julio's out. That only helps Calvin Ridley's case, even though it hurts Matt Ryan a little bit, because we all know that he plays better with Julio on the field. But it's just going to mean more volume and more targets thrown Calvin Ridley's way. Whether or not he catches them, it's going to be kind of up in the air. But you look at him since the bye week, he's had 9 targets, 10 targets, and 12 targets. And the New Orleans game was the last time I think Julio was out, because he played last week, right? Am I correct with that?
Julio?
Julio
did not play last week.
Oh, well, great. He got 2 more targets than the previous week. So last week he got 12 targets, caught 8 of them for 124 and a touchdown. Put up 26 fantasy points with Julio out again. And that was versus the Chargers defense, who is middle of the pack, whereas against the pass, Tampa Bay is in the bottom half. So this could be a really, really big day for Calvin Ridley if no one else is able to step up for Matt Ryan. So look for them PPR points. I really like the matchup here.
Derek, how about you?
I'm going to go with Nuke Hopkins against the Eagles. I mean, they have really struggled against the big-time receivers. Devontae Adams, DK Metcalf, even Michael Thomas with Taysom Hill was pretty good last week. And they have no Darius Slay. He's in concussion protocol. They have no Avonte Maddox. The only starting D-back that they have left is Jalen Mills. Rodney McLeod tore his ACL. It's a nightmare matchup for the Eagles. I think they're going to have their hands full. I'm predicting a double-digit catch day for Nuke Hopkins today. The Eagles have been stout against the run. I don't really know if Arizona can commit to the run that long in this game. I think they're going to have to rely on Kyler, his legs, and his arm to win the game today. So I like DeAndre for a huge game.
Yeah, no Slay out there is just a killer for that Eagles secondary. All right, so I'm going to go with Juju Smith-Schuster. We've seen over the past couple weeks the drops just total up for Deontay Johnson. The last time that the Steelers played the Cincinnati Bengals, Juju Smith-Schuster had which was Week 10. He had his best game of the season aside from Week 1 against the Giants. 9 catches, 77 yards, and a touchdown. I think we see Juju get back on track this week, and with the targets coming down for Deontay, and they just have no semblance of a running game anymore. You cannot trust any running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is just unfathomable that I'm actually saying, because they've had a strong running game for the past 82 years, it seems. But they're just going to be throwing the ball a ton. And I think Juju is the one who's going to benefit this week.
I agree with your entire argument, Brian. That was beautiful.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. Tight end studs of the week. Tom, who you got?
I'm double dipping this week. I don't care. I hate this entire segment of stud tight ends, and I'm just sick of it. So I'm going with the guy that's gotten me the most correct picks with TJ Hawkinson. It's going to be a big day for Hawk if they're going to move the ball through the air. I am going to talk about the biggest way that they're going to move the ball a little bit later here on the show. But TJ Hawkinson this past couple of weeks, he's had 4 games with 10 or more fantasy points. He's got 11 targets last week. Only caught 6 of them. If he can maintain that level of target share, then and ends up catching a couple more, he's going to play big. And on those 6 catches, he only had 43 yards, and he has that ability to break them away. So I think he could potentially step it up versus this Tennessee defense, who has played terribly against opposing tight ends.
Yeah, I mean, Hawk has been one of the most consistent guys throughout the year, and especially over the last 6 weeks. And having Matthew Stafford back under center is a vote of confidence for Hawk this week, and especially with maybe we're not seeing the 100% Matthew Stafford, which he may limit the amount of times he throws the ball downfield, which may mean more for Hawkinson underneath.
Well, and I think Galladay is still out, which still makes him the number 1 target.
Marvin Jones.
No, absolutely not.
Not overlook it.
Never.
Marvin Jones.
DJ Hawkinson? Oh yeah, he's great.
I like Marvin. Derek, who you got?
I'm gonna go with Irv Smith. Not necessarily a tight end stud, but I think he's gonna be a top 10 play this week. No Kyle Rudolph again. Last week without Kyle Rudolph, he had 60 yards and a touchdown. The biggest thing with Irv Smith has been opportunity. I mean, in the beginning of the year, he was phased out. He wasn't even a part of the offense. And ever since then, he's been pretty steady in his production, 3, 4, 5 catch weeks. But he's been nursing injuries throughout the year. It's been groin. I think he had a hamstring issue in the middle of the year. But when he has played, and last week was his first game back from his second injury, he was good. They put Tyler Conklin in that kind of Rudolph role where they block for him. And I think the biggest issue with Irv Smith week to week is Rudolph cutting into his production. Conklin's not going to do that. It's a great matchup against Chicago. Chicago has been very susceptible to tight ends. I think Irv Smith is actually a pretty decent play today.
I have Irv Smith in one of my dynasty leagues, and I'm just waiting for that breakout. Because the worst part about having Irv Smith on that team is that I also have Darren Waller and Robert Tonyan on that team.
Yeah. You're not playing him,
right? But if with the tight end landscape, how do you not then be able to put out Irv Smith is available? I can easily get. I can probably get a second round draft pick for Irv Smith if he has big weeks over the past couple. So I'm leaning on Irv Smith to.
They may move on from Kyle Rudolph. I mean, at this point, him and Conklin aren't very different, and Rudolph has a much higher price tag. That's a guy they might move on from and kind of build around Irv Smith at the tight end position.
So my tight end stud of the week is Jared Cook. We started to see him get utilized even by Taysom Hill. The past couple weeks he's had back-to-back double-digit games, and now he gets Drew Brees back, and there is no Michael Thomas. Jared Cook is my number one DFS tight end play this week. In terms of the price that it's going to cost him, I absolutely I think it's a smash play. The one position, just like the Chicago Bears, the one position that the Kansas City Chiefs are susceptible to, they are 26th in the league in terms of giving up points to the tight end. Jared Cook, to me, is an absolute smash play. All right. Once again, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. We will answer them live on air. Let's move on to our duds of the week and to the quarterbacks. Tom, who you got?
So this might change with the injuries to the Baltimore defense. You said it was
Calais Campbell and Marcus Peters are out for Baltimore.
Yeah, so that could mean
Smith.
And this might change a little bit, but I'm going to hold strong with it. I'm going to go Gardner Minshew here. He is coming off a multi-week injury since their bye week, it looks like, and then came back last week, only put up 13 fantasy points against the Titans defense. And I know that the Ravens have been giving up points in recent weeks, but I don't know. I don't think he's the best QB on the roster anymore. I think he was, and then the Doug Marrone started messing with the juju a little bit, took him out to replay Nick Foles, and then tried to put him back in. And Gardner Minshew just hasn't been the same. If anything, I think those injuries just mean more opportunity for James Robinson. And yeah, they might be through a screen, and Gardner Minshew's day might be saved, but I don't think you're going to expect more than 20 points from him. I think that 20 points is his max, considering he only got 13 versus Tennessee. So I'm going to go that he's going to not play the best and not play as everyone's expecting him to kind of play with those injuries out.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that this would only be in terms of a DFS play. I don't think many people would be looking to be starting.
I meant to say that. That's my bad.
Semifinals this week, but It really is tough because we just haven't seen anything from the Jacksonville passing offense all year to then go and put your trust in it this week. It could be tough.
Yeah, I should have specified that it was for daily. Obviously, there are better options, probably even on the waiver wire for if your only quarterback on your roster is Minshew, you're probably not in the semifinal.
Right. All right, Derek, who you got?
I'm going with Breeze. It was big news this week when we had talked about it when we learned he was going to play. I mean, he's coming off a collapsed lung, which recovers relatively quickly, but he's still going to be dealing with 11 cracked ribs. It's incredibly painful, and he's going against Kansas City. It's not the most fearsome defense, but it's not the recipe that Drew Brees is looking for. I mean, he picks apart any soft zone team. that's anything but Kansas City. They blitz about as much as anyone. They play a ton of man coverage, and he's without his best receiving option in Michael Thomas. I think Ryan's right about a big day for Jared Cook, because I don't think there are too many receivers who can really separate consistently on a down-to-down basis at this point without Michael Thomas. I think they're going to lean a lot on the run. I still don't envision a bad game from Breeze by any stretch of the imagination, but you can't trust him coming off this drastic of an injury pretty fast against this kind of defense. It's a big leap of faith that you're making. So you stay away from Drew Brees today.
Yeah, talk about a fantasy bust. Michael Thomas played, 4 or 5 games this year total, and now he's done for the season?
Did he score? He didn't score this year, right?
I don't think he did.
Score. And it's amazing that I am in my semifinals with drafting Christian McCaffrey and having Michael Thomas as a keeper.
That is pretty remarkable.
That's tough.
All right. We have another question. We've got Dalton Schultz or Jonnu Smith, or pick up Irv Smith. Already have Justin Jefferson in my lineup. So having Jefferson in the lineup against the Bears, I don't know if I want to load up. I actually think Irv Smith is the best play.
I would drop Schultz for him. I mean,
and play both Vikings against Chicago.
I mean, Jonnu and Ferkser are both in the lineup. Ferkser has been thriving in that tight end 2 role. Jonnu's just there to block at this point. Dalton Schultz is going against Fred Warner.
Fred Warner was just declared out for today.
Ooh.
Oh, is he really?
I think I just saw that come across. You guys talk a little bit, and I will let you know.
Schultz was one of my picks last week, and he had 30 yards against the worst defense in terms of allowing points against tight ends in Cincy. He had 30 yards. I mean, if Fred Warner's out, I still don't love the matchup. San Fran's still a pretty solid defense. I don't really mind double dipping in the tight end stratosphere, because it's not like you have great options anyway. At this point, you're just looking for a guy that could get you 6 or 7 points that won't kill you and get you a donut, which Jonnu Smith is very capable of doing. And I think Dalton Schultz this week is too. Without Rudolph, I think Irv Smith presents a decent floor.
Yeah, I agree. I think that – do you have Jonnu as your
I do. I have him in 2 weeks. In the first 2 months of the year, he's great, and he's done nothing since.
Yeah, so you got 2 of our duds here, because I have Schultz, I believe, as my dud. So I didn't like Schultz's matchup even with Fred Warner, but I still don't like it regardless. You know, like you said, that's a very well-coached defense, and Shanahan's done a great job of making sure they have depth. I'm sure whoever is going to be stepping in for Fred Warner is going to be able to cover Dalton Schultz, because he's not this dynamic playmaker that's going to be able to, tear up defenses and kind of be like his ceiling is basically a Jason Witten, where he's going to be getting a ton of PPR points for not a bunch of yards. Irv Smith has that really high ceiling that could, he had the 1 week where he had, I think it was 2 touchdowns on 2 catches.
Detroit, yeah. I mean, it's availability for him. And we know he's in the lineup. He's not hurt, and he doesn't have competition at the tight end spot. He's clearly the 3rd best receiving option behind Thielen and Jefferson. They're going to garner the most attention in this passing attack. There's no reason Irv Smith doesn't get 4 or 5 catches underneath and maybe falls into the end zone.
All right, I must have misread something. Fred Warner is not out today.
All right, still all right.
Yeah, that makes me feel better about it. Schultz, I mean, that's the worst matchup for tight ends.
I would pick up Smith here. I think.
Yeah. I guess right now you can't be worried about starting 2 players within the same offense. You have to be starting whoever is going to get you the most points. And I do think that Irv Smith is the best play of these 3. All right. So that is going to bring us to Derek, you gave your
Breeze. Yep.
Yeah. All right. So it's on to me. And I'm going to I like going out on a limb with my quarterback duds of the week. I'm going Russell Wilson. That's it. In his last 4 games that weren't against the Jets, he is averaging 15.6 points. That's not what you want out
That's
of...
not MVP numbers.
No, that's not MVP.
They're changing the offense. That is for sure.
It's not what you want out of your quarterback in semifinals week. And the matchup is as tough as it comes. On the season, Washington is 10th against quarterbacks over the last 6 weeks. They are in the top 5 in terms of points given up to the quarterback. It's going to be awfully tough to sit him, but there are a couple names that I would sit him over. I mean, Brady. I'm starting Tom Brady over Russell Wilson. I'm starting Ryan Tannehill over Russell Wilson.
Jared Goff.
I'm probably starting Jared. Yeah,
I think Goff is higher floor this week.
Yes, absolutely, 100% higher
floor. But I mean, Russell Wilson's obviously a much better player.
Yeah, but you could not go any further apart in terms of matchups with these defenses. So yeah, Russell Wilson. It's right now. It's awfully tough for me to feel confident about what he's going to give me this week. All right, running back duds of the week. Tom, who you got?
Since we're spicing it up a little bit, I'm going to go with Dalvin Cook, the number 2 running back in PPR. I understand if you're in your semifinal, Cook is a must play. I mean, you can't bench the best running back in football. I think he's the best. I don't even know who number 1 is right now. But the only problem with Dalvin Cook this week is he's playing Chicago. Now, I'm saying he's a bust because he's projected for his normal 20 points. The last time he played Chicago, he was projected for 20 points as well, but he only put up 13 because he got 96 yards with 16 receiving yards on 4 catches. This Chicago defense is going to bottle up the run. That's what they're good at. That's maybe the only saving grace that we see on defense because, their secondary is very spotty. Dalvin Cook, I know he needs to be played. You got to play him. Not saying you don't, but, daily fantasy, I wouldn't touch him. I don't really know how many people you could say you'd play over Dalvin Cook. It's not going to be a bunch, but I really don't like the matchup, and I wouldn't really be surprised if he puts up another 13-point dud.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be really tough to you can't start. You're not going to find 2 running backs on your roster that you're going to find that you're going to start over Dalvin Cook. But what it is you have to manage the expectations and know where you may need to look for a bigger upside play in a different part of your lineup.
You're going to get his normal floor, but you got to fix the lineup and adjust it so that you get the equivalent of what his ceiling would be.
Absolutely. Derek, who you got?
I won't be as spicy, but I'll go with Chris Carson. It's just a really tough matchup. We talked about Russell Wilson, but this Washington defense is for real. Carson is a guaranteed volume play. I think in your regular fantasy lineups, you still have to play him. But in DFS, it's a nightmare matchup. And I'm worried about a certain someone, Rashad Penny. I mean, there's a guy who has nursed so many injuries first 2 years, but he's the better running back. I don't think he's going to assume that backfield right away. I still think they're going to ease him into it, but Pete Carroll wants to play Rashad Penny. They used a first-round pick on him. That's going to start today. In your DFS lineups, it's not even like it's a matchup that I'm running towards. Washington's bottled up the run. I just think they're going to have their hands full up front as it is. I think he could get some work through the air, but that's a guy that I'm steering clear of.
My dud of the week is going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire going up against New Orleans. And a lot of people are going to look to last week and say, look at what Miles Sanders did. Miles Sanders did what Miles Sanders has done in the past. He broke off one big run. Look, it was just like what he did against Pittsburgh. He broke off one big run, and it salvaged his entire day. Miles Sanders is the AJ Brown of running backs.
Yeah.
If you take away that one run, he had 13 carries for 35 yards. The New Orleans Saints defense is still really, really good, and they're still really, really good at defending the run. And we have not seen that breakaway potential from Clyde Edwards-Helaire that I think everyone was just expecting to fall right into place as soon as they drafted him. As I remember, because I was doing the instant reactions for Back Sports page for the draft, and as soon as they drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I said, "There's your RB1 in Dynasty," because the fit just seemed too perfect. And he's been serviceable. He's been okay. He hasn't, aside from the game where you thought where he was active, and then Andy Reid said, "You're not playing." He's been okay. He hasn't killed you most weeks, but he hasn't given you those. He's had 2 top 5 performances all season long. And it's just not going to come this week against New Orleans.
Where do you think he is in the dynasty landscape?
In terms of, like, I still think that.
Like, all right, how about among the rookie running backs? Among Akers, Swift, Dobbins, who am I missing anyone? Taylor.
He may be behind all 3 of them.
I know. That's what
Swift would be the only one that I would. I think Taylor. Most people had Taylor as the RB1 before we knew where everyone was going.
Mm-hmm.
Swift was in the conversation as well. Once we saw that Clyde Edwards-Helaire was going to Kansas City, it was just automatically assumed that it was going to be a smash fit. If I had to pick an order to draft them in terms of dynasty, he may be number 4.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and especially looking at that first game, that first Thursday night game, first game back,
yeah,
everyone was like, "Oh man, this guy is he's gonna be the best." Like,
so do you know the Jack Nicholson meme where it's yeah? I posted that saying, "This is me taking a victory lap for taking Clyde Edwards-Helaire at number 7 in 2 different drafts." It was and
now it's like,
shooting your own horn before you know exactly what's going on. Yeah, that's a worst part about taking early victory laps. All right, let's move on to wide receiver duds of the week. And Tom, who you got?
Yeah, I mean, this one's another one that it really pains me to say, but because I love him so much. I got T. Higgins this week versus Pittsburgh. We've seen him take a little bit of a dip since Joe Burrow has kind of gone down. And we have Ryan Finley at quarterback. Last time he played Pittsburgh, it was still with Joe Burrow. He got 9 targets, 7 receptions for 115 and a touchdown, put up 16 points. It was all great. He hasn't broken 50 receiving yards since Joe Burrow has gone down. Like I said, it's really depressing to kind of hear that. He's still getting the volume. He's still getting, anywhere between 5 and 10 targets. But the receiving yards is just not really there for him. And this Pittsburgh defense, while it is a little bit broken down, the Bengals are broken down more. So I'm staying away from T. Higgins this week, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's so hard to depend on third string quarterbacks to do anything for your wide receivers. And in what should be a decent matchup with what we've seen in previous weeks from the Pittsburgh defense in terms of giving up points to the wide receiver, it's so tough to rely on him this week. Derek, who you got?
I'm going with Scary Terry. We talked about him in the beginning of the show. Look, the Seattle defense, since the acquisitions of Dunlap and Jamal Adams coming back, they played better. They've had an easy slate, but over the last month, they've given up 14.5 points per game. And Washington and Dwayne Haskins don't necessarily scare me if I'm the Seattle defense. I think the one thing they're going to try to take away is Terry McLaurin. I think there's a chance they spark that Ohio State connection that we saw last year at certain spurts, but it's not something I'm banking on. Just watching Haskins last week, he looked completely overwhelmed. He looked unprepared. I understand he has a week of practice, but he doesn't assemble any level of confidence in me or for a guy like Terry McLaurin in this offense going into today. I'm staying away from McLaurin in any DFS formats.
Yeah. Again, we said it earlier. You just, it's so hard to rely on Dwayne Haskins.
He has an opportunity today to maybe build up some draft value. They ship him away for a 5th-round pick, and he competes for a starting spot on another team next year because clearly him and Rivera butt heads. It's not working there. But last week, he was not ready to play. And as a backup, I understand he's been dealt a really tough hand, and there can be a kind of tendency to sulk, not sulk, but it sucks. I mean, I think you see it with Carson Wentz. You already see the reports that he doesn't want to be a backup, whatever. And I think some guys take it really well, and some guys do not know how to handle it. And Haskins last week just was not ready to play.
No. And to be honest, it's not just last week. It's been almost every single game of his career, except for the second half of the Eagle game.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. My wide receiver dud of the week is going to be Tyler Lockett. I know this was one of the reasons why I wanted to get in Lockett versus Jones, because I'm down on Tyler Lockett. The thing that made Tyler Lockett as good as he had been was efficiency per target. The targets aren't there, and the efficiency per target has gone down drastically. And then you put that on top of the matchup. I really do not like Tyler Lockett this week. I think this is going to be another week where Seattle's going to try to establish the run, which is a reason why I'm okay with someone like Chris Carson. The thing that would scare me most about Carson is, are they going to incorporate Carlos Hyde as well? Mm-hmm. Because we've seen that countless times this year, that they're not afraid to use a 2 running back system. And again, you brought it up. Penny is Rashad Penny is making his season debut today after that brutal injury. Was it week 17 last year? Mm-hmm. Or yeah. Yep. Now, I've never been a Penny fan. I thought that
I think he's special. It's just injuries, but he averages over 5 yards a carry behind that historically pretty awful offensive line. It's been a little better this year. He's obviously not going to get 10 touches today or digging a lot, but it's like you said, now you got Hyde and Penny to worry about.
Yeah, so and I think that having that additional guy in the backfield, and Rashad Penny is going to eat into the receptions of the wide receivers, because I actually think he is the best receiver out of the backfield of the 3 of them. So that's something that I'm going to take from. All right, tight end duds of the week. Tom, who you got?
We kind of already touched on this a little bit. I got Dalton Schultz this week for the reasons that we were talking about before. San Fran's a really well-coached defense. Fred Warner is one of the best linebackers in coverage in the league, I think. And, Schultz, like I said, doesn't really have that big playmaker ability. He gets his, 5 or 6 catches or receptions He usually catches all of them. He has a very high percentage of catch rates over the recent weeks since they're bye. But he doesn't really break. Normally, he doesn't break 40 yards. He had 44 versus Baltimore on his 4 catches, but he usually sticks to under 40 yards. Sometimes he gets a touchdown, but I don't even see him being that involved in the passing game versus San Fran this week.
Derek, how about you?
I'll go with Ebron. He's really struggled. I mean, he's hurting their team week to week. The past 3-4 weeks, alongside the other Steeler receivers, he has had drop issues. He's had that throughout his career. That's kind of what you sign up for when you play Eric Ebron and when they signed him this offseason. But Mike Tomlin's a no-nonsense coach. He has gone on record saying he will put in receivers and players that help them win and that won't drop the ball. We saw last week, Vance McDonald saw the most snaps he's seen in the last 2 months. He's the better blocking tight end of the two. I think it's a perfect bounce back game for that run game. I don't think it's going to be all of a sudden pwn overnight, but I think they try to make a better effort establishing the run. They can't continue to just drop back 50 times a game with a decrepit Big Ben Roethlisberger. And that means it's going to cut into Ebron's workload and his snaps. So I do not feel comfortable starting him. I understand it's as good a matchup as it gets. Cincinnati versus tight ends have been awful this year, but I could easily see that being Vance McDonald on Monday night. I could easily see McDonald being the guy that gets 50 yards and a touchdown.
So my tight end dead of the week is going to be Mike Gesicki because he's out. So I had put into our chat that I was going to use Gesicki as my tight end dead of the week, but since he is officially inactive, I am changing over to Dalton Schultz. The matchup against San Francisco we talked about earlier, that we were even willing to put Irv Smith in over him. It's just a really tough matchup. I think that and without Ezekiel Elliott there, I think it's going to just even more emphasize getting the ball outside. And we've seen Amari Cooper and at times Michael Gallup, at times CeeDee Lamb actually have decent success with Andy Dalton. With the Dalton to Dalton combo, we've seen the 3 to 36. Schultz is not going to goose, but he's not going to do it for you this week, especially against San Francisco. So, I'm looking at my waiver wire. If Irv Smith is there, picking him up all day long.
Watch the way 2020 is going. Now that 2 of us has Schultz as a dud, he's going to go off for like 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's just the way it's going to go.
Yeah. All right. So I apologize, Tom. It was that I took your guy as well.
No. Injuries happen, man. I'm glad that we're all kind of confirming.
Yeah,
Schultz is a dud.
Fine,
now I can't be the only one that's wrong. You're saving me some embarrassment here.
That's right. Yeah, don't no way. All right, time for the most fun sleepers, quarterback sleepers. And again, it's tough. You don't really have any sleepers at this time of year. What we're looking at is those guys that are projected to be outside of the normal starting guys, and who you can look to play instead. So, Tom, who you got?
I had him last week. I was told I am not touching this man with a 10-foot pole, and I am going back to where it's at. Jalen Hurts produced last week, and I wonder who said that they weren't touching him. 17 for 30.
Cautiously optimistic. I'm
17 for 30.
They've hurt me. All they've done is hurt me this year. I'm sorry.
17 for 30, 167 and a touchdown in the air, with another 18 rushing attempts and 106 on the ground. Yes, he had the one fumble that prevented him from getting 20, but this is a worse defense in Arizona this week, and I understand the Eagles have their problems. Oh, they're finally starting to get Miles Sanders involved. That just opens up the offense a little bit more. And Jalen Hurts is an underrated passer. Everyone's like, oh my goodness, he's so great of a runner. He can beat teams with his legs. All he needs to do is throw slant routes. No, he's a great deep ball passer. That's one of the things that the Eagles fell in love with when they drafted him. They went on record saying that Jalen Hurts is an underrated passer and can beat teams with both his arm and his leg. I am really excited to see these two two Oklahoma products go at it today. And I would love to see, I'm very excited for this game. This might be one where I flip off of Red Zone to just watch this game go on, because I truly think that this is going to be a shootout and Jalen Hurts is going to be able to hang with Kyler Murray this year.
Yeah, the matchup is really intriguing because the Cardinals defense does get to see Kyler Murray every day in practice, but they also do play a ton of man coverage. And one thing that you tend to find in man coverage is the quarterback having a little bit better ability to rush the ball, because you don't have as many eyes looking into the backfield. I think that they may change up there. And what shocked me was how much he actually ran the ball. Because at Oklahoma, even at Alabama, he used his legs to extend plays, but not always run the ball. So like Derek and I were talking about on Wednesday, what he did was very similar to what you see a Mahomes try to do. And Aaron Rodgers try to do. At times, even a Russell Wilson tried to do. Russell does rush more than the other two, but
he used to. I don't think he does anymore so much.
Not designed, but he still does his fair share of scrambling. But yeah, I was shocked how many times he actually tucked the ball under and ran the ball against New Orleans. It was a great game plan, because they obviously saw something in the New Orleans defense that they thought they could exploit, and they did that for the entire first half. So,
yeah. I mean, I think watching that game last week, it's kind of the inverse of like where it could go wrong and where it could be good. So like Taysom Hill, for example, he had 2 designed QB runs last week. He's not built to come back from a 17-0 lead, and he ain't even played bad in the second half necessarily. But that's my worry for Hurts. Cardinals jump up on them. They have a lead at halftime. They kind of have to have a more pass-heavy offense. The Eagles do in the second half. Then what does his output look like? That's something I'm looking to see today. I think the Cardinals have to be wary of his legs, whether that's a spy, whether that's kind of a contained rush where they don't let him leave the pocket. But they still had designed QB runs for him that game. They still had another 5 or 6 designed QB powers, zone read stuff that's easy for him. So it's going to be a great matchup. It's going to be a really fun matchup. I agree with Tom there.
All right. Derek, how about you? Who you got?
I'll go with Mullins. Not the funnest sleeper pick. I don't really love watching him play. Love it as much as Tom does, apparently.
Pad the stats 2020.
But that is Mullins. He kind of always salvages the day. In his last 6 games, he's thrown for at least 240 yards in all of them. I mean, that's insane. Just watching him play, you wouldn't really know it, but they have a lot of receivers that could create after the catch. I know they're without Debo, but Ayuk had 130 yards last week. And they go against Dallas. It doesn't get much better than that. I would feel pretty comfortable putting him in a DFS lineup and spending up on a lot of other places.
He's one of those guys that you're never going to get a goose from. He always seems to figure out a way to reach the 240 and a touchdown at least.
Well, and what's impressive about those numbers too was he got benched, I think, in 1 or 2 of those games, and he still had 240 and a touchdown.
The Buffalo game.
Yeah.
Eagles.
Yeah. So he still found a way to get 240 and a touchdown even after getting benched in the 3rd or 4th quarter. I mean, dude puts up numbers.
My sleeper quarterback of the week, and as much as it pains me to say, is going to be Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
He's just playing the most confident football that he's played so far in his almost 3-year career. The Giants are going to be without James Bradbury tonight. And the Giants have been one of the stingier teams against the run. I think they're going to make Baker Mayfield beat them. I think because what you have to do to beat Cleveland, you have to stop Nick Chubb first. And with the Giants not having Daniel Jones, they're going to want to slow down the pace of this game. I'm assuming that they're going to want to establish a run with a Wayne Gallman, with an Alfred Morris, similar to the way that they had their game plan against Seattle when McCoy played the other time. So I really do think that their main focus is going to be take away the run. And we've seen Baker be able to spread the ball out. He's got 2 tight ends that he feels confident throwing the ball to, even when Austin Hooper isn't playing. I know he's a true game time decision for tonight. But he still has Harrison Bryant and David Njoku, who have been given bigger weeks. Rashard Higgins, Jarvis Landry is going to eat the Giants up. The slot play, the slot cornerback play for the Giants this year has not been good. And it's going to be one of those. I think Landry can have a huge week. So I think you can. There are definitely worse plays out there than a Baker Mayfield this week.
Absolutely.
I agree.
All right. Sleeper running backs of the week. Tom, who you got?
I forget if I said this last week, but I'm gonna go with a guy that I've at least mentioned a couple of times here on the show, is DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift was coming off of a 3-game absence last week versus Green Bay and only ran the ball 7 times, got another 5 catches. So that puts him at, 12 targets or 12 total touches. And he ended up putting up over 40 yards and getting a touchdown. That was off of like I said, a 3-game injury stint. Tennessee doesn't have a much better rush defense than Tennessee. We've kind of already talked about this game a little bit and how we think that it's going to be a big Swift day. I think that he's going to start getting back into that form that we were seeing he was in before the injury, where he was starting to become that lead back that was going to take over basically everything other than goal line. And even then, he was still getting in on some of the goal line touches. So I think that this could be a nice bounce back game for him after having an ease in last week. And he's a guy that I'm fully confident of playing as my RB2 this week and even over as a flex.
Derek, how about you? I really like DeAndre Swift, and he gets targets.
He does. He's a great catcher too.
I think over even when he wasn't being utilized in the running game earlier in the season, he was still getting, I think, at least 5 or 6 targets every.
He was still a low-end RB2 in PPR formats, even when he was getting 3 or 4 carries a game.
He was what I expected Kerryon Johnson to personally be in the beginning of the season. Yeah. He's what I thought Kerryon Johnson would be this year. I didn't think Adrian Peterson would play as much of a role as he is. I thought he would have came in for some goal line work like he has, but I thought that Kerryon Johnson was going to take all the pass catching stuff and they were going to start easing Swift into that early down role. But he has been such a great player for them this year. It's been great.
All right. Derek, how about you?
Let's flip back the clock to 2016. I'm going to get a little crazy here, but I like Shady today. I don't know. I like Shady. Ronald Jones is out. He's on the COVID list, and I'm not even sure if he would have played. He is getting surgery on his pinky, I believe.
Yeah. It was the same exact injury that Chris Godwin had suffered.
And he had to miss a week. So, look, Fournette was a scratch last week. McCoy saw 31% of the snaps. He had 5 touches, 4 of them through the air. He had 4 catches for 32 yards. I know that doesn't get you super excited, but Fournette leads the league in drop percentage. He has dropped 13.7% of his targets. I mean, it just has not worked with Tom Brady. I think Bruce Arians tried to force the issue a little bit, making him a pass catcher, and he saw a lot of work in Jacksonville, but that's just not what Fournette is. He's really struggled this year. I think Fournette still sees some early down work, but McCoy's going to get all the third down looks. He's still going to get some first and second down carries, I believe, today without Ronald Jones. And even against Atlanta, they've been a solid run defense as of late with Raheem Morris. I think they're going to look to throw the ball more. It's going to be all McCoy out of the backfield. You can't trust Leonard Fournette. I think if you want to get dicey, you throw him in your flex in your DFS leagues. If you want to spend up at other places, I think he is in line for a 5 or 6 catch game, maybe a J.D. McKissic kind of game. That just scared me. Oh, my God.
That scared the crap out of me. I'm not going to lie. I heard Derek talk, and I was like, oh, my God.
All right. The CFP rankings have been released, and we have
no surprises.
Number 1, Alabama taking on number 4, Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Number 2, Clemson taking on number 3, Ohio State.
NCAA's happy. They got all their big money schools.
Ohio State should never have been involved in this. They shouldn't have even been in that game yesterday.
All right. So I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant.
Oh boy.
And it was a rant that almost got me in trouble yesterday in our
a little bit
group chat. Ohio State should not be in the college football playoffs. They should not have been in the Big Ten championship game.
Nope.
The Big Ten commissioners were staring at a possible $12 million payout, depending on if Ohio State's able to. It's $6 million per game, so they're looking at a potential $12 million payout if Ohio State reaches, and that is the only reason that they changed their rules to allow the Ohio State Buckeyes to play in the Big Ten championship game. The rules were that you had to get 6 regular season games unless the average number of games in conference dropped below 6. 10 other schools in the conference had 6 or more games. The average was not below 6. And this was strictly a money move and not over what was right, which is why the NCAA will always be looked upon as one of the worst run organizations in this world. Not just in sports, not just in this country, in this world. The NCAA is a bunch of crooks.
All right, let me play devil's advocate for you. And I am not speaking out for the NCAA. I hate the NCAA. But I think if I'm looking at a Big Ten's lens, there were 3 games canceled were Maryland, Illinois, and Michigan. So say
Michigan
they go
didn't want to play them.
Say they go 8-0 in the Big Ten championship. But they beat Northwestern.
The first 2 of those games, they were canceled because of Ohio State COVID issues.
That's not true. Maryland canceled for them. So the only game that Ohio State canceled on their behalf was Illinois. So 1 out of their 3 canceled were because of Ohio State. Right. If they win those 3 games, which they are, I mean, they're going to beat those 3 teams.
Because the Big Ten sucks.
Okay, that's not their issue, though. But when everyone was saying
Ohio State's fault.
A reason for them to not make it is them being 6-0. I don't. That doesn't really. But that's not. They would have been 9-0 with that schedule. Right. So I'm not necessarily looking.
The rule was there.
It's a bad rule, though. It's a bad rule, and I do think it was a money move. Of course, it was a money move, but they're clear. I mean. They're the best team in the Big Ten. I mean, they beat the 2 best teams in Northwestern
and Indiana.
That's like saying
Washington is the best team in the NFC East.
That's a different argument. That's a different argument. If you want to put Texas A&M over them, I mean, I'm not advocating for Ohio State, but for the people that are saying they didn't play enough games, blah, 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 I don't necessarily agree with that argument. They're still going to win the rest of those games. The Big Ten is not good this year. But Ohio State was the best team of the Big Ten, and that's how they're going to do it. And
why have rules if you're just going to change them
hang
on.
That's just because, right.
Before we even talk about the rules and stuff,
there's good rules and bad rules all over the place in every single organization.
Before we even talk about the rules and stuff, though, it's pure speculation to say that they would have won those 3 games. I understand they're the best team. I understand they more than.
Right, wait.
Time out. Let me finish my thought. Right.
In Michigan,
I understand that they're the best team. I agree. They probably would have won. There's a reason that they play the games, though. I had a 4% chance to win my fantasy team, my fantasy week last week as the 8th seed versus the number 1 overall seed who had plus 1,000 points on her points differential. And yet I ended up beating her by 20 or 30, something like that. They play the games for the reason. It's not just, okay, here's the schedule. You're supposed to just play this. Maryland could have just gone off for some reason, right? Illinois could have gone off for some reason. Michigan, for some reason, could have just hung in there because Harbaugh or whatever. There could have been a million possibilities. That
0-7 against Ohio, or 0-8 against Ohio State in his career.
It's about time that he gets a win. He's not going to go
Joe
win
Milton at quarterback,
right? But here's they play the games for the reason. They could have lost one of those games, and at that point, I still would have rather had Indiana, because Indiana earned their games. Their one loss, yes, was to Ohio State, but they followed the rules.
This isn't me pounding the table for Ohio State. I think they're going to get killed by Clemson. I don't think they're that good a team. I think they were exposed to a pretty high degree against a good Northwestern defense. Now, Payne Ramsey is obviously not a very good quarterback. They couldn't really expose Ohio State, and I think their corners are pretty weak. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to throw for 400 yards against them. But to everyone's upset that they only had to play 6 games to get there, and I get it. It's not very fair. But even like Texas A&M, they had their shot against Bama, and they got absolutely smoked. I don't really see a huge – their best win's Florida. Their next best win is, Missouri? I mean, it's not like they were necessarily – they had the toughest schedule either.
If you're going to base it on just the games that are played, I mean, first of all, I think that –
Indiana full strength is a good win, and they were up 35-7 in the third quarter. It got weird. They ended up winning 42-35, but that's a good win.
With them losing to Oregon on Friday, it really killed any chance of USC saying that we belong in there. But to be honest, I thought USC looked better up until the Oregon game this season than Ohio State did. I think they played better teams.
Pac-12's awful. The Big Ten Pac-12 is worse than the American. It might be. It's a really bad conference.
I don't know about that.
This all could have been avoided if the NCAA made it 18.
Won the Pac-12 and they lost to Cal and Oregon State. It's a bad conference.
They lost the Cal loss is unacceptable. Oregon State.
It's a rivalry.
In college football, you can never.
Yeah,
look at a rivalry game like that.
Pac-12 doesn't deserve respect right now, though. I mean, it's either they shouldn't be in the same breath as the other 4 power conferences.
Look, this all could have been avoided if they had an 8-team playoff, and they said, "Okay, let's do it this way." Ohio State, you don't have enough games, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put you up against the 11-0. Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, because they deserve a shot to play.
I would rather put Coastal and Cincy over the Pac-12.
If they made it an 18 playoff, they could have just said, okay, Ohio State, you're probably going to win this game, but you know what? More money, more revenue, right? They make it an 18 playoff. Okay, if you want to be in the playoff and you want to compete for the championship, win your way through. Win the games that you would have or that you missed. So I think that's what they should have done. They're probably going to be doing that going forward. But I agree. I don't think that Ohio State should be there, personally.
All right. Rant over. All right.
Rant over.
We have a question from a viewer. Good morning, gents. Full PPR choose to Deontay Johnson, Brandon Cooks, Robert Woods, DeAndre Swift.
Oh, okay. Wow.
As crazy as it may sound, Deontay's the first one I'm eliminating.
I was going to say the same thing, just due to the drops and
I mean, he was benched.
We don't know if he's going to play that much. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If he drops one on the first series, you're not going to see him the rest of the game.
Nope.
And I'm just not willing to risk. Does he have the highest ceiling of anybody on this list? Absolutely.
Probably.
Deontay Johnson is the one player on this list that I think can go for 30 points today.
Agreed.
Or tomorrow. This week.
Whatever it is.
But if Deontay Johnson drops a pass on the first series, the odds are you're gonna get a goose. And in a semifinal matchup, I'm not willing to take that risk. The Brandon Cooks matchup against Indianapolis worries me, and the fact that they're using Kiki Kuti. Did you know Kiki Kuti has 3 games in his career of 100 yards receiving?
They're all against the Colts.
They're all against the Colts.
That might have been my best deep sleeper pick of the year when I pounded the table for him against the Colts that first time. He had 100 yards. Yeah, I guess he's like the equivalent of Ty against Houston. It just works. I don't know.
There it is. Big games for opposing sides.
To me, it was right away the 2 names that stood out to me were Robert Woods and DeAndre Swift.
Me too.
That's where I was leaning to. I agree. I was taking out Johnson because of the drops and potential benching, and then Cooks is going to be getting the wide receiver 1 treatment without Fuller there. So I was going to go with Woods and Swift solely because the matchup for Woods and
I was going to say the matchups for the last 2 are just great.
They're just fantastic.
You got Robert Woods against the Jets and Swift against the Titans.
Yeah.
I mean, good, definite, great question. Good luck. Hopefully you win and tune in to the show
championship weekend, baby.
For championship week.
Hopefully I'll be in one.
Yeah,
no guarantees.
All right. Where were we?
I think we were on running. You're running back.
You're running back. Yeah,
you're running back. Sleeper. Jeff Wilson Jr. versus the Dallas Cowboys.
I mean, yeah, we talked about
it. So Raheem Mostert. Obviously, I think a lot of people are looking at him. I'm worried about his health.
Mm-hmm.
There's easily a chance that Raheem Mostert comes in, gives you 2 carries, and is out the rest of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Wilson has been getting a solid workload, even when everybody's been healthy over the past couple weeks. And he gets the Dallas defense. I just think that the upside, now he has a pretty low floor because it could just be the short passing game. Although, I mean, Kyle Shanahan, he'll never abandon the run. But if Raheem Mostert takes over, we could see less of Jeff Wilson. I just don't think that's going to happen. I love Jeff Wilson in this matchup against the Cowboys, and we saw the last time that he was given a full workload, he went absolutely berserk and had over 100 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's fully capable of giving you a week winning week, and I love him in DFS this week as well.
I'm surprised the Niners are even playing Mostert. I don't see the point.
Yeah, I don't want to risk him getting even more injured than he's already been this year.
What's Mostert's contract situation? He's a free agent at the end of the year, right?
So I remember at the beginning of free agency last year, he was in a dispute because he signed a longer-term deal before he blew up, but that was more for a special teams contract, so it was a lot less money.
He is under contract. Sorry to interrupt.
Go for it.
He is under contract through 2021. He's going to be a free agent in 2022. But, yeah, as Tom said, he signed an extension for $8.7 million base salary. He had his 9-10 week stretch last year where he might have been the best running back in football. He helped them get to the Super Bowl.
So they can cut him with only a $458,000 dead cap hit next year.
Yep.
But why? I mean, why would you cut him? He's their best running back. He just gets hurt.
And he's an absolute stud. He's a top 10 running back when he's healthy.
Yeah, and I
think they might draft running back.
2.875 isn't something that you really need to have.
Mm-hmm. I could see them draft a running back next year, or if they love Hasty. He's been up and down this year, but I could see them draft another Mostert type in day 3 and maybe move on.
Ooh, all right, this is a good one. Brandon Ayuk or Robert Woods?
I'm pounding the table for my guy. It's Dallas. I mean, I know that Woods has the Jets, but Dallas is almost as juicy. He has no competition for touches on the perimeter without Debo. It is all Brandon Ayuk in that offense right now.
And we even saw, I know in the game against the Giants, where Debo was out, Brandon Ayuk was in, we saw the 49ers use Ayuk in those little tap passes, those tap passes that Debo was able to be so successful with. So if you can get those cheap points from there, I love Robert Woods' matchup this week against the Jets, but I think there are many other options, and we don't know how long the Rams are going to need to throw the ball for.
Yep.
So Brandon Ayuk is my pick.
That's where I was going as well. With the matchup, yes, it's slightly better for Woods. They're not going to be throwing the ball all that much, and they're trying to get Akers more involved. We've seen over the past couple of weeks. So, yes, Woods is going to probably have a big day. It's not going to be in the second half, though. And Ayuk, it's like you said, Ryan, it's just as good of a matchup versus Dallas, but Dallas' offense is going to keep it semi-competitive to the point where they're going to need to keep throwing. So I would go strictly due to usage. I would go with Ayuk.
There's definitely a greater chance of a blowout in the Rams-Jets game than there is in the 49ers-Cowboys game.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you so much for your question. Good luck, and we hope that you win. Tune in week 16. All right. Wide receiver. Boy, we're a little behind. Believe it or not, we're actually behind now because of the
rants.
Yeah, sorry.
We're all good, bro.
Wide receiver sleepers of the week. Tom, who you got?
This is a guy that we have fallen in love with on this show, Michael Pittman versus the Colts. I know that everyone's talking about T.Y. Hilton doing his thing again versus the Texans and everything. Pittman's kind of fallen out of contention, not contention, but kind of fallen off the edge of the earth. There was that period of time where he was getting 6, 7, 8, 9 targets a game. Over the past couple of weeks, he's only broken 5 and hasn't broken 50 receiving yards. This is going to be a solid bounce back game. He had 5 the 1 week 2 weeks ago when they played Houston, caught all 5 of them for 46 yards. But I think now that they saw the resurgence of T.Y. Hilton, they're going to start taking that double coverage off of Pittman and start putting it back on T.Y. Hilton. And one-on-one, Pittman's one of the better rookie receivers in the game. He has such a vast skill set that to get open, to catch balls in coverage, contested balls, everything. So I really like Pittman this week as a breakout player.
Derek, how about you?
I'm going to go with Danny Amendola. I kind of have a theme with my picks, but I love the slot receivers, and DFS at like my third spot. If I want to spend up, I've had guys like Kuti, Cole Beasley, guys that we talk about every single week. Amendola, we haven't really mentioned, but in 5 of his last 6 games, he's hit a 55-yard receiving marker higher. He's just Matt Stafford's security blanket. It's as good a matchup as it gets against Tennessee. I do worry about Stafford's injury, but it's still Matt Stafford. I still think they're going to have to lean on the passing game today. They're probably going to be falling behind. And they should attack. They should try to exploit the secondary. It's what the Browns did with Baker Mayfield. It's what teams do every single week against Tennessee. But Amendola is about as safe as it gets if you need 10 or 11 points in that third receiver spot, maybe a second flex. I feel very comfortable playing him against a really, really poor secondary in Tennessee.
So I'm going back to the well with Kiki Kuti. As mentioned earlier, a lot of people may be scared off with the Indianapolis matchup, but to be honest, I think over the past 5 weeks, Indianapolis has been 7th worst against quarterbacks in terms of giving up the points. with Deshaun Watson, they've got to go somewhere, and we've seen the success that QT has had against the Colts. I think he is a viable option for your starting lineup, and absolutely a big play of mine on DFS this week. All right, let's wrap up sleepers with tight ends. Tom, who you got?
I'm going back to the well, and I couldn't let his name not be spoken today during the show, and I was really hoping that I didn't have to bring him up, but I'm bringing him up. Cole Kmet. Ryan has been calling his name the past 2 weeks, put up 14 and 7 over the past 2 weeks in one of these leagues. I think it was a little bit more on ESPN leagues. 7 targets in each of the past 2 games, caught 9 of them, 9 of the 14 for a total of 78 yards and a touchdown. And this is a Minnesota defense that doesn't bleed points to the tight ends, but definitely gives up a lot of points to the tight ends. Kmet's been getting more and more involved since Trubisky's taken back over the quarterbacking duties. He's relying on him to catch a bunch of these short little passes that Kmet showed last week that he could break away for 10 extra yards after the catch. And he's been a red zone option. Some of the targets that he's missed over these past 2 games has been in the end zone. So if Trubisky can find a way to get him the ball and make it an actual catchable ball, Kmet could easily break out for 15, 25 points. That's my range there for him for a ceiling.
All right, so Derek, how about you?
I'll go with Dan Arnold in Arizona. They've been steering more towards 11 and 12 personnel the past few weeks with Dan Arnold and Max Williams. Darnold's had 3 touchdowns in his last 2 games. I think he has worked well off play action. He kind of fits that Gesicki mold. I don't think he's nearly as athletic, but he's like that big slot. He's not there to block. He's just a huge receiver, huge target for Kyler Murray. And the Eagles have been very susceptible to big pass plays, chunk plays over the middle of the field. They've showed against slot receivers, tight ends, week to week. So I think without most of their secondary, which we talked about, it's going to be a lot of Jalen Mills, a lot of Nikhil Ruby-Coleman, who's really struggled. I think it's a great matchup for Arnold.
So I'm going to make a little bit of a change. I originally had Jack Doyle. That was under the original assumption that we weren't going to have Mo Alley-Cox or Trey Burton. Both of them are now also playing. So I think that limits the upside of a Jack Doyle. So I'm actually going to go with Harrison Bryant. His athletic profile is going to be something that I don't know if the Giants linebackers are going to be able to handle. Assuming that Austin Hooper is not going to be playing, I think Harrison Bryant is in line to have a pretty decent game tonight against the Giants. All right, we have one more question. We've got Chris Carson or J.K. Dobbins full PPR.
Eek.
I like Dobbins. He has no competition and a way better matchup.
Yeah.
I mean, I would hate to have to make that choice. Gosh. Because I hate Chris Carson, but he's technically more productive, I guess you want to say. I mean,
he can catch out of the backfield. That's my one worry, but I also worry about his workload today. I worry about that matchup. Is he even going to hit 40 or 50 rushing yards? I don't know. He could definitely get 30 receiving yards and a touchdown. That's probably the one thing that could save his day. But Dobbins, there's no reason he shouldn't get 100 rushing yards today. No Mark Ingram. It's just him and Gus Edwards.
And Lamar. Don't forget Lamar.
Yeah, I'm going to go Dobbins also. Yeah. All right. Good luck in your Week 15 matchup. Hope to see you Week 16 for your championship. All right. So now we are on to our stacks and lock picks of the week. Tom, who you got?
Yeah, so I'm going off my quarterback stat. I'm going Tannehill and Brown. I think, like we said, they're gonna link up for 1 or 2 really deep passes that are going to salvage both their days. For my lock, I am going with the Colts over the Texans. I think this is going to be a game where the Colts are just going to absolutely shred them like they did last time. And then my against the spread, I am going with Washington +6 versus Seattle. or 6.5, whatever it is.
Yeah, when you had originally made the change, I was upset because that was going to be my. It was the one line that I felt most comfortable in. Was
well, you picked before
Washington.
me. You sent it in before I did.
No, you got it
You're
in
the first one.
before
You're
me.
the first
You
one.
were the first one.
Oh, was I really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, my bad, man. I'm sorry.
Hey, no, I think it's a great pick. Derek, who you got?
My stack, I'll go Goff and Cup. Take your pick between Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, but these Jets corners are not very good. I just say Kupp has the higher floor. My against the spread pick, I will stick with the Rams minus 17.5. That's 3 possessions. But look, man, the Jets just look so defeated last week. Does Darnold do they get double digits against this Rams defense today? I don't think so.
You think they're scoring? No, I'm very serious.
Yeah, I mean,
you think they're going to score?
We'll score. I just don't know if they're going to even get in the end zone today. And then my lock, I'll pick the Ravens over the Jaguars. They have a lot of injuries, but they have to win.
Yep.
All right, my stack of the week is going to be Brady and Chris Godwin. My lock pick of the week is Pittsburgh over Cincy. And my against the spread is Tampa minus 6.5 over Atlanta. That is going to do it for us. We have 2 minutes until kickoff. Everyone, best of luck in your semifinals matchups. Hope you guys win. Come back here next week. We've got championship week next week for most leagues. Make sure you're checking out Backsports page for all of the great content going up. You can follow Tom on Twitter at THB315. Derek is at Derek Mountain. I'm at rstern33. Backsports page is at Backsports page on all social media. So, guys, good luck this week, and let's reconvene in 7 days, and as we look forward to Championship Sunday.
Something I didn't tell you guys. If I lose this matchup versus my dad, he's choosing what jersey I wear next week.
Uh-oh.
We made a little bet here, so maybe he might make a jersey out of a dress or something. We don't know, but we'll see. We're gonna find out.
I kind of hope you lose now.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know. But if he loses, he owes me $50. So we're good.
There we go. All right, I like those terms. All right, good luck, everyone, and we will catch you next week.